Hey, Leadville Racers, how are you? My name is Mike Iddings, and I'm the host of the YouTube channel Get My Buckle. This channel is all about Leadville, the race, the racers, a lot of emphasis on the first-time racers trying to figure out, where to set the compass, how to get pointing in the right direction. So today, my guest is Randy Guymer. He has been in Michigan for a lot of the time he did the Leadville 100 training in Michigan. He recently moved to Utah. Big change, but he's going to share some of his experience with us as a flatlander at almost sea level. So it should be some good feedback from him. Randy has completed the race 18 times. He's got 11 sub-9 buckles. He's got 7 sub-12 buckles. So he's got a good mix of time, but he's also, he's a pretty strong rider. So we just need to take that into consideration when we're listening to his numbers. If you're a 12-hour bubble racer, your numbers aren't going to be the same. So just keep that in mind, apples and oranges. So anyway, Randy, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your day.
Good afternoon. How are you? Very well.
All right. So how did you get to the point? I mean, I'm asking you, when was your first Leadville? What year?
1997.
97. So we're talking 21 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
20. Right? Oh God.
20.
Yeah.
27 years ago.
27 years ago.
Yeah.
97, right.
Yeah.
Geez. Let's start over. That was terrible.
Okay. I'm off.
We're going to clip that. That was bad.
Okay.
Hey, good afternoon, Leadville Racers. My name is Mike Iddings, and I'm the host of the YouTube channel Get My Buckle. This channel is all about Leadville, the town, the race, the racers, and we're going to talk about race experiences. We're going to have people on that are going to ask questions. I'm going to field those questions. We're going to try and set the compass for the new riders coming in this year so that they are confident come race day. Our guest today is Randy Guymer. Randy is an 18-time finisher. Randy's got 11 sub-9 buckles and 7 sub-12 buckles. So he's a strong rider. So if we start talking numbers and you are a 12-hour bubble racer, you want to make sure that you know that these are apples and oranges as far as numbers are concerned, because the sub-9 numbers are totally different than sub-12 numbers. Anyway, Randy was from Michigan. He did a lot of his training at sea level in the flatlands. So proof that you can train enough and get to Leadville and do very well. So Randy, thank you for taking time out of your day. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So back in Michigan, I guess, how did you hear about Leadville when you were living, back in the day?
Well, I actually wasn't living in Michigan when I heard about Leadville. I had moved to Summit County, Colorado in 1993. And of course, I had a lot of friends in Michigan, and a couple of them had mentioned to me in the spring of 96 that they were coming out to Colorado to do this crazy 100-mile mountain bike race called the Leadville 100. And I had never heard of it. And I just lived, 30 minutes away. I was familiar with another crazy race up there, which you may have heard of, Montezuma's Revenge, which was another 100-miler. And anyway, they said, hey, we're coming out. We're going to be out there for a week in August. And they stayed with me for a little bit, my friends, Todd Scott and Cullen Watkins. And they said, we're doing this 100-mile mountain bike race. And I go, well, I'll come out and crew for you and cheer you on and all that stuff. And that was my exposure to the Leadville 100. That was the second, or was that the third year? That was the third year they were running it. And I crewed for them and I watched them, and I remember watching them come across the finish line. And I'm like, there's no way I am ever doing this race, because this for themselves inside out. And I was a 2-hour cross country racer. I had no interest. So then comes along 1997, and they're coming back out again. And I'm like, okay, what the heck? And that's how the sickness began.
Right. Huh.
Yeah.
I,
So,
I, I know Todd. I
would
met
you,
Todd. Yeah.
yeah.
Him and my brother are actually friends. Didn't realize I didn't make that connection. You knew Todd Scott.
Yeah, we live in the same town and we rode in the same circles. And he does a lot of running too, as you probably know. And they were coming back out in 97. And I thought, well, what the heck? I'll give it a go. I just was going to be happy to finish. And of course, living in Summit County didn't hurt. I was living at 9,000 feet and I had all this great terrain and didn't know really what to expect. And I did pretty good. I had a 931 in my first attempt.
Wow.
Um,
That's great.
Pretty happy with that. And I remember crossing the finish line, never again is what. And the next day I was already plotting my strategy to how to break that 9 hour mark. So
That is
1990.
a common story. That
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
I've heard that. You know, people get across the finish line, they're like, no freaking way ever again. And then the next morning, they're like, all right, I'm going to train a little bit harder. I'm going to get out here a little bit earlier. I'm going to acclimate a little bit more, and I'm going to do better.
Yeah, that's really it. And so the
Crazy.
second I did it, I did break the 9 hour mark. I did it in 8 hours and 42 minutes. So I did it pretty comfortably. And I was still living in Summit County. But at the end of that season, I had a turn of events in my life and I ended up moving back to Michigan. So 1999 is rolling around and I signed up for the race again. Of course, now I'm living at sea level training, but I was racing almost on the road all that year. And I rode a lot riding on the road. I was riding with a club. And before coming up to race, I already almost had 6,000 miles in the legs, all in Michigan. And that was the year of my best race. Living at sea level and coming out 10 days before the race, I know the exact time, 8:02:15.
Wow.
And that was good enough for eighth place overall. Different race back then, of course. And I thought for sure I was going to podium, and I got sixth in my age group, being
Ah,
eighth overall. Anyway,
wow.
that's
You,
that's how it was for me.
man, you have 6,000 miles in your legs before August.
I did that year. Yeah, doing a ton of road racing. Road races are longer than 2 hour mountain bike races, so it's easy to gather up those that kind of mileage before the race and fitness.
Yeah, no, I mean that's a lot. I mean that's double what I did in the entire last year.
Mhm.
Period.
Yeah.
Double. Holy cow.
And that year happened to be the most miles I've ever logged in my whole life. It just things in my life allowed that kind of training to happen that year in '99.
Wow,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
All right. So what do you remember any of your numbers, your FTP or your watts per kilogram or anything like that?
Well, back then in '99, we weren't really, that techie yet, at least at, the amateur level. Um, so no, I don't. I knew what my heart rate was, and I've always been kind of a diesel. But outside of knowing my heart rate numbers, no, I didn't know about my watts or my FTP or anything like that at that point of my cycling, adventure. Yeah.
If we fast forward a little bit,
Hmm.
would you know would you be able to, come up with any of those numbers?
Yeah, the highest, of course, when I'm real fit, my weight is around 150. So you have to, keep that into perspective when you're doing FTP. The highest FTP I've ever recorded myself is 245. So, not big numbers by any stretch. Um, and that was about 6 or 7 years ago. Um,
Wow.
but for me personally, I've discovered what kind of mileage I need to have in the legs to have a good race. I always know if I go into Leadville with between 3,500 and 4,000 miles in the legs before race day, um, I'm gonna do a sub 9.
Wow.
The years I've had less than that, not so great. But probably more importantly than, well, I don't know if it's more important than the miles in the legs, is my weight. I notice that when I've weighed under 155, I'm way faster than when I'm 160 or 165. So my natural weight's probably like around low 160s. So I've got to drop, if I drop 10 pounds before the race, I'm a lot faster.
Wow. Well, and
Yeah,
that's just power to weight, right?
exactly.
That number
Exactly.
changes and it for the positive. So
Mhm.
that's a good thing.
So
And
let's say I
what
was just not super techie. I mean, I know my numbers and stuff, but I don't dwell on them. I know them, but I don't dwell on
okay. Well, a
them.
little bit different approach. I mean,
Yeah, a little
you know what
more.
works for you, right?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because when I ride, I like looking at my power on my rides and such. And I kind of know this and that about my fitness, but certainly on race day, I don't dwell on those things. I'm more concerned about how I feel, not going out too hard, too fast, and just be able to maintain the pace I need to have a great race for 9 hours, you know, and
Uh-huh.
that too.
Yeah, do you remember the mass start?
Oh my gosh. The mass start being 500 or the mass start being 1,750?
Well, yeah, the 500 mass starts just like the White Corral nowadays.
Right, exactly. And the mass start for 500 wasn't horrible because by the time we got to the bottom of St. Kevin's, it was pretty thinned out already. I mean, there were still a lot of people there, but it wasn't horrible. Like probably the last year they did a mass start before corrals.
Right.
That was pretty chaos. A lot of chaos there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think that it's bittersweet for me. Because I think the mass start, if you're a new racer coming to Colorado and you've never ridden in Colorado and you've never done Leadville, if
Mhm.
you were to be in the middle of that mass start, that is something you will never forget as long as you live. It
True as
is
that.
crazy. And
Yeah.
it's too bad that isn't, that still isn't part of it, but I understand the reasons that drove it, to
Mm,
be corrals. But I guess the White Corral, I mean, I'm not in the White Corral, but you've got 90% of the riders are the similar ability, and you've
mhm,
got 10, and these are, I mean, I don't know if these numbers are accurate, but then you've got a 10% people who shouldn't be there, but they
mhm,
signed up later, whatever. They didn't have a qualifier, something like that. So they get to take off, catch the other White Corral, but then the bulk of the White Corral that you start in, they're all hitting Kevin at the same time,
mhm.
which, can create a problem. That's what I hear. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, dabbing feet and falling over and, chain reaction and roadblocks.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds like a
Um,
mess.
it does. And I've road raced as much as I've mountain bike raced in my career. And I used to be pretty comfortable riding in a big group like that, banging elbows and such, not shoulders on a mountain bike, but elbows. Um, but now I'm 63. I'm more comfortable with the 200 people in the corral than I am with the 1,700 rolling down sixth, to be honest. Yeah.
I can understand that. Are you in this year?
Oh yeah, I'm in. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I think I had a race. Well, let's say I had a pretty good race last year. I think I'm in Green Corral this year. Um, I don't think I have any big belt buckles left in my future. If I could train like I had nothing else going on in my life, I think I could still do some sub nines, but I have a wife and I have a life and we like to do other things and I still train a lot, but I'm really training. I think the difference between a 10-hour time and a 9-hour time, the training is huge. Um, it really is. So I'm looking more at 9-hour times now, I think. I mean, 10-hour times now.
Huh.
I had 9:39 last year. And that's about where I thought I'd finish. Yeah. I kind of had a feel that I wasn't going to break, 9 hours. I pretty
Wow.
much knew it was gonna be. So I think I'm
So
a more 10-hour guy going forward. Um, and I don't know how many more I have left in me. I know I've got 2 more for sure.
right,
After
right.
after that, to wait and see.
Well, that's right. You got to get your 2,000-mile buckle, which looks just like that one right there.
Exactly.
Ha.
That's what I need on the trophy case. Um, I'm kind of interested in maybe doing the stage race after I get my 20. But that's wait and see. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
So when you're in Michigan, this
Hmm.
is this is for the people coming from, from the flat, parts of the country. What
Hmm.
did you do? I know you said you logged a lot of miles, but did you do any, were the miles specific in any way, or was it just riding? I mean, give the Flatlanders some, a little bit of insight on, how you did.
Well, for me, when I moved back to Michigan, I was mostly road racing and I was riding with a team. So we did a lot of hard rides on the road, and racing every weekend. That was my training. It was so long ago. I mean, it was 25 years ago, so I really don't have a lot of specifics on it. Um, my suggestion, someone coming from Michigan, is just ride a lot. And, uh, depends on what kind of training model you use too. I use the 3-zone method. Dr. Steven Seiler, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He uses a 3-zone, and I would train mostly today. I train mostly at the high end of his zone 1, and then maybe one day a week do his zone 3, which is 85 to 88% of max. Some workouts intervals.
Right.
So I mean, there's so many different training models and techniques out there. That works for me. That works for me. Um,
Well, it's at 63 years old, doing
mhm,
Leadville this year.
mhm.
What's some of your training, you know, what some of your training weeks look like?
Well, because of my job, I only can ride 4 days a week, which isn't bad. And I'll be doing a lot of long gravel road rides here in the mountains of Utah, with a lot of sustained climbs. Um, and I'll hit the climbs hard and the flats, more at a more moderate, easy to moderate pace. Um, I'm just not really super duper focused on doing structured training anymore. So I'm not sure if I'm the right guy to give the best advice. I do what kind of works for me. I know if I have so many miles in the legs, I'm going to do well. And that's just how that race is to me. Because it's such a long day in the saddle. It's really hard to be focused on specific numbers, I think. Um, I'm
Hmm.
not saying I'm different than everybody else, because I think a lot of people train probably the way I do too, in some sense. But I'm just not really into the numbers anymore. It kind of takes the fun out of it at this point for me, doing so many of them.
Well, right. I mean, you've got plenty,
Yeah.
and for the viewers out there,
Mhm.
if it takes you years to get into Leadville
Right.
and you're coming from far away and you're going to spend a ton of money,
Yep.
you're going to take a lot of time out of your life to train. You're going to spend a ton of money and all the training and getting to Leadville and staying in Leadville and then doing the race. You want to be as well prepared as possible. So
Absolutely.
a lot of us recommend get a fitness coach wherever you're at and get on
Mhm.
a program and have the trajectory end at Leadville.
That,
That's the
that's
best recommendation. And if you
yeah.
don't, go ahead.
I said that's great advice. And I did use a coach one year, Carmichael Training Systems,
Oh yeah.
and a lot of this was in 2004, because I took a break from Leadville. I moved back to Michigan, and I didn't do the race for 5 years. So I did Carmichael's training system, and I was living in Michigan, and 5 years older. I was 44, 43, and I did an 808 that year from Michigan. So it can be done for, the Flatlanders, with the right training, the right amount of miles. Yeah.
No, that's great. And CTS, since we touched on that, for you
Hmm.
anybody watching, CTS is waiving their athlete registration fee if you use the code GetMyBuckle. So if
Hmm.
you engage them, you can save some money using that code. They've aligned with us, to help out the racers. So little bonus.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it. You will learn so much um, by having a coach design specific workouts tailored for you. And I still use those same workouts 20 years later without a coach. Not trying to say you don't need a coach after 1 year, but the knowledge you will gain is huge. I mean, you can read all you want, but when you have somebody tailor something to you, I think there's a huge benefit to that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And and with the coach, they teach you about eating, they teach you about sleeping, they teach you about, rest after workouts. And I mean, there's a lot that you learn. So it's a super comprehensive package that not only prepares you for Leadville, but teaches you about yourself and just getting into shape and staying into shape.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Uh,
Especially Leadville's, I guess it depends on your level of your accomplishments in cycling. If you're a Cat 1 racer or an expert mountain bike racer, well, a coach is good no matter what. Um, how much
right.
you need, I guess it depends on a lot of other factors too. Yeah,
So what have you done the race on a bunch of different bikes?
I have. I've done it mostly on hardtails. I think I have 3 races now on full suspension. Now I'm doing full suspension only because I'm just getting older and sadly, I got arthritis in both wrists. So I need all the cush I can get during the ride. Um, I think a hardtail's faster personally, but my body can't take the abuse anymore. I need a little bit more of a plush ride. I did it single speed 1 year. I
What
remember
was that
that
time?
9 hours and 33 minutes. And that was weird. I probably crossed the finish line the least exhausted of any Leadville I've ever done the year I did single speed. And
Really?
there was so much spinning where I had no resistance on the pedals. The climbs were hard, of course, because you're in a fixed gear and there's a lot of standing. Not fixed gear, but you know what I mean, one speed.
Yeah.
And but although not anywhere near my fastest or my slowest, it wasn't the most, it was the least, probably one of the least taxing ones I've ever done. It was really kind of funny.
Huh? Because I am super intrigued about the single speed thing. I'm gonna do it on a single speed one of these days. One of these
Yeah.
years, I'm gonna do it. So that's it's interesting to hear that. I love it.
What so often you're just coasting and spun out. And on a geared bike, you'd be mashing a big gear to keep the speed up. So I guess I got to the bottom of the climbs a little more fresh because I wasn't pushing it so hard before I got to the climbs.
Huh?
That's
No,
the way
I
I
can
look at
understand.
things.
Could you have sub 9 down at single speed at one point if that would have been a focus?
I actually thought I was going to sub 9 the year I did it. I had the fit. Um, but you have to pick the right gear. I might have picked a little bit too light of a gear, although it was great for climbing. Um, I just lost so much time on anything flat or, where I really needed, to be pushing a bigger gear. That was in 2007. So I was 36 that year. 46, 36. How old am I? 46. I was 46. Jeez.
Do you remember the gearing you had on your single speed?
Think I do. I believe I had a 3221
Okay,
on a 2.9er.
on a 2.9er.
Yeah, I believe that's what I had. I think it was just a tad too light for that course.
Right.
Yeah,
Huh.
but
Interesting. All right.
I could be wrong on that. I can barely remember what I did yesterday.
So you're a full suspension guy. Are
I
you a
am.
dropper? So dropper post or no?
I am now. I resisted the first couple of years they were around. I thought it was kind of ridiculous. Now I love it. Um, for some of the reasons of just getting older, it's easier for me to throw my leg over the saddle when this the post is down. I love that. There's really nothing really super technical on Leadville where you need a dropper post like to get low for technical train. But I'd love it for the descents, like coming down Turquoise Lake, drop that seat, whatever, 4 inches, 5 inches, you get that much lower to the bars and can go faster on the descents. So yeah, I like it now. And then for single track riding here in Utah, I mean, totally love it for that. So yeah, I'm all in on the dropper post now, but I did resist.
You did, yeah. I've resisted, and I'm still resisting. I'm
Okay.
I'm old school. I still run the straight post, and I've tried the dropper, and I don't. It's just I've probably ridden too much without
Oh,
it, and
yeah.
I don't feel I need to make the transition, and I don't need the weight and whatever. So I'm still old school in that respect.
All right. Well, I have 5 mountain bikes and they all have droppers on them. I've converted. And something I do that a lot of people don't do, and I think you're crazy not to, but this is me, bar ends. For that race, bar ends all the way.
I agree with that 100%. I've ran bar ends every year.
Yeah.
Just I need
Too
that
far.
extra wrist position,
Hmm.
and I
And now,
still get numb.
now that I have arthritis in both wrists, I need to move my hands around on the bars. Because I'd be in a world of pain if I had to keep them in the same place for 9, 10 hours.
Right. All right. Let's talk about tires and PSI.
All
Do
right.
you have a favorite?
Well, I play around with a bunch of different tires. I'm gonna run the same tires this year as I ran last year. I'm using Schwalbe's and I'm using a Racing Ralph on the back. And oh my gosh, what do I have on the front? I've got the box out in the garage. It's not Rocket Run, it's something else. But I'm running Schwalbe's. I run a 235 in the front and a 22 in the back. And I'm running well, not obviously, but I'm running, tubeless. And for me, I go just a little higher for race day at Leadville because it is a pretty firm, hard course. I'm running about 18, 19 in the rear, 20, 21 up front.
Really?
Yeah,
Tire pressure is such a controversial
I
subject.
know.
Well,
Eh,
I talked to Ty Hall, right? The
Yeah,
Dream Chaser Ty,
yeah.
and Ty told me that he runs 35 in the front and 50 in the rear.
Well, I can't even run that on my rim set. It doesn't recommend anything above 30 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, and those are envy wheels.
Huh.
So, um,
Interesting.
yeah, I remember they were ran tubes. I remember running 45, 50 pounds on Ritchie World Cup tires or whatever they were called back then. But yeah, and I used to run tubeless in the mid 20s to near 30. And everything I read and I'm actually going by the charts from Envy, I'm running a little high still for my weight. It says I should be running like 17, 18 pounds.
Wow.
So, and,
And
and
you
that's
ever
a
had
good,
any flats at Leadville?
pardon me,
Have you ever had any flats at Leadville?
one,
One.
tubeless. It was a puncture. Oh gosh, it's the worst spot ever. Halfway down St. Kevin's, heading out towards not St. Kevin's, halfway down the power lines, heading to Twin Lakes. I was not, I was right in the beginning of the race. There's hundreds of racers coming by me. I'm trying to find a place to get off the side where I could fix it. Just, it took the wind out of my sails, and that was my worst Leadville. 10:23 that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Um, so I got this is what not to do at Leadville. If you get a flat, don't think you can make up time by going extra fast after the flat, because I burned so many matches on my way to Twin Lakes. I had nothing for the rest of the day. So if you get,
Well,
you just got to keep riding your race. Don't think you can make up time, because you can't. It's too long of a race.
yeah, and if you know, and depending what athlete you are and that sort of thing, you know, holy
Mhm.
cow.
Yeah.
So do
Yeah.
you what now that you're on a one by, what is
Mhm.
your what gearing are you running?
Uh, I'm running, what is it? 1050 on the rear, and front is a 32.
32.
I did, I'm gonna walk over here. I got dogs. You
Ah,
may have heard the background. Um, so the last year I did a hardtail was 2019. And because I was running a hardtail, I felt like the bike was more efficient. So I ran a 34 up front that year, and it was a 1050 on the back. And I was 59 that year, and I had my third fastest time. So I had an 8:33 that year at 59 years old. So
wow.
yeah,
But that's holy cow. That's awesome, man. I just
yeah.
am I know there's a lot of people, there's a lot of flatlanders that um if you're a sub nine, if you're a 12-hour bubble racer,
Hmm.
I don't think a 34 is the gear for you
Probably
because
not.
we're just talking to a guy who's a 8-hour racer and he's
Mhm.
on a 34. So I would not recommend a 34 for a 12-hour bubble racer.
Definitely not. I would say probably a 30.
Right. Yep. That's where that seems to work well for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that that race in 2019, I was back in Michigan that year. So I was all, relatively flat training. So
Do you
for you,
you you do a lot of training on road bike now?
no. And I'll tell you why. I'd like to. I don't feel safe on the roads here. It's a little crazy. Just not a lot of space. I probably would say at this point, I'm 60% on my gravel bike, 40% on my mountain bike. And I think last year I rode my road bike 3 times.
Well,
So,
I think gravel bike is very similar to a road bike in
mhm,
the from the aspect that you are probably on more um a little bit flatter terrain,
mhm,
so you're gonna have extended efforts, right?
mhm. Sure.
Whereas the mountain bike, you're up down up down up down, so the efforts might be maybe more intense, but they're shorter. And on the gravel bike and the road bike, you're just putting an extended effort in, which is long intervals.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
So you do a lot of gravel riding in preparation for Leadville.
I do. And I have one incredible climb close to home here. It climbs, you're not gonna believe this, it climbs 4,000 vertical feet. So 1,000 more than Columbine in 7 miles. And I'm not even at this point in my life, I'm not strong enough on my road bike to climb it. I don't have the strength because of the gearing of the road bike. I ride it on my full suspension mountain bike, and I am in my 3250 almost the whole stinking climb. And it's what I call my Leadville training climb. And I usually do it 3 times before I head to the race. It's hugely taxing. Right. And if anybody lives in Utah, it's the road up to Powder Mountain. It's an incredible climb. Super steep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, how fortunate are you to have that to go train on?
I am very fortunate. It takes me about an hour 15, hour and 20 minutes. And it's just a super, super hill climb. And there's the dogs again.
Huh.
Any of you viewers that have dogs, you know what I'm doing right now. Come on in, guys. Come on, get inside. All right, stay out there.
All right. Um, What else do we got here? Do you have any, for the people coming in, what do you think you have experience coming from Michigan to Leadville. So what would be some of your acclimation advice for people?
Well, I like the idea of coming out at least 10 days before. I know there's all these theories about coming out 24 hours before and something, but to me, Leadville's an experience that I just don't want to show up for the weekend and then leave the next day. So this year we're coming out for 2 weeks before. We're bringing the RV and we're staying, 3 miles from the start finish line. And it's a vacation on top of a race for us. We make the most of it. And I think if you're coming from out east, you definitely want to make it a vacation as well as a race. Because it's such a great area. And there's other things to do besides mountain biking. You can go hiking or fishing or whatever you like to do. But I would suggest come out a minimum of 10 days before so you can ride the course a little bit. Don't do it all at once, but break it into maybe 3 or 4 chunks and, experience it that way. Learn the course as well as you can. That's what I would suggest. So you know where every little rise is, every climb, every descent. It'll make the day that much better for you. That's what I think.
Well, since you touched on that, have you
Mhm.
seen these?
I remember seeing that. Where did I see that?
Well,
I,
I was on
I have
the
seen
Facebook
it.
page, probably.
Okay. I have
But this
seen it.
is, yeah, Daniel Bagendorf makes these and he sells them. And it's one thing to look at this, right? Here's the map. Here's a map of the course.
Uh-huh.
Okay, whatever. Here is, let's see if I can do this. Here is the profile of the course. The
I thought that
elevation. You thought it was what?
your heart rate.
That's on the other side. Um,
Okay.
but you look at those two maps and it's like, okay, I mean, they tell you how hard Columbine is. But when
Mhm.
you look at Columbine from this perspective,
Yeah.
here is Twin Lakes. Here is the turnaround point.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, that becomes real apparent
It sure
that it is
does.
one butt kicking climb.
It
And then
is.
after you come down Columbine and you go across the conduit roads
Yeah.
and you get to Pipeline here. Here is Power Line. Again, this
Mhm.
crazy steep climb.
Crazy, especially the bottom third.
The bottom third. And the top third is crazy technical.
It is.
But I
For
get a kick out of it. I love this thing, man. He made it for me. He donated it to the show, and it just really puts things in perspective for people who, if you can't get to Leadville for whatever reason, I would
sure.
highly recommend getting a hold of him on the Facebook page, Leadville Facebook page, and getting one of these and studying it.
Hmm.
And mark, get the other map, reference it, mark your aid points that are on the course, and know and really understand the size of the climbs that you're faced at what point in the race. I mean, because it's no
Yeah.
joke. I mean,
It's no,
it is no joke. Hang on,
and
man.
and that brings up a good point. I told you about my training that I do at Powder Mountain. On paper, that's a harder climb than Columbine. It's steeper. It climbs more vertical and less miles. The difference is the top of Powder Mountain is 9,000 feet. The top of Columbine is 12,450 feet. And there is no air up there. There's still air at 9,000 feet. And that is what makes that climb so hard, is that your power goes way down because there's no oxygen to deliver to your muscles.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Oh no, Columbine. I mean, and it's interesting because everybody is affected by elevation differently. You know,
Hmm.
Keegan
Hmm.
only loses 10%.
Hmm.
That's what I've heard. You know,
Right.
most of us normal, not ultra endurance gifted athlete people are going to
Mhm.
lose 20 some percent.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a big chunk to have
It
to manage differently
for
all day.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and the athletes that do it today that are the fast guys, um, they're just the amazing power that they put out. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but they're, you just watch how fast, it used to be that, and you probably remember this when we were younger, um, the pros didn't turn around past me or us until you were maybe a half mile from the turnaround point. Now the pros are passing me at the bottom of Columbine just before you go into the woods. I'm like, what happened?
What?
I got older, but
Yeah, and that's
but
the truth.
yeah.
So do you is power line? Do you walk or push? I mean, do you walk or ride power line coming home?
Now,
Now, yeah, now. Well, then
yeah,
and now.
yeah. Now the bottom third is definitely a push. I have ridden it in 2 races completely and clean, and even recently I've rode it in training. But there's a big difference than riding it 5 miles from town or riding it with 80 miles in your legs. And when you get there at the bottom with 80 miles in your legs, it's not even worth trying to climb. You just get off the bike and start walking. So
Huh,
yeah, but I've done it just recently fresh. So it is doable. It just depends on, I think, your fitness level. But me, I push. I've been pushing probably the last 15 years. Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, you're a stronger racer, you're a faster racer than I am. I clear power line race day. I've probably cleared it 8 out of the last 10 years.
Really? Good for you.
Race day. Well,
Huh.
good for me. Yeah. Well, I don't get a buckle for that,
True.
which is just it's interesting. And I mean, one year I had a 28. When I had my stents, I ran a 28 up front because I
Hmm.
was dividing the load because my heart issue. And then I ran a 30 and I've been running a 30 and a 30 oval and can still do it. And it's not easy, right? It takes everything I have to do it, but I still walk away from people. Everybody that pushes, I mean, I'm 75 yards ahead of them by the
Hmm.
time I get to the top for sure, and
Yeah.
just
Well,
managing it.
I
And
believe it's faster. But my back's starting to get sore, and I just feel like I need to start moving my body around a little bit. So I kind of welcome. I just do the bottom little third there, the real steep part.
right,
Where,
yep.
and as soon as I get over that first hump, then I jump on the bike and I ride the rest of it. Um, so that, yeah. And then
But
I used to be able to ride Columbine too, but I just don't have the power to do that anymore either. The whole
that's
the steep part. Yeah.
oh no, that's a no joke climb also.
Yeah.
And if
Steep
you're in
and
the back, what was
yeah.
that?
Steep and rocky. The
Steep and
rock
rocky and two-way traffic.
and two-way traffic. Right. Right.
Yeah, Columbine's tough to clear
Yeah.
unless you're in the front. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Or you've got some space between you and the rider in front of you. Yeah.
So I heard you said you're bringing an RV out. Where are you staying?
Sugar loafing. Yeah.
Sugarloaf. Okay. And
Yeah.
how far in advance did you have to get your name in for this to have the spot?
Well, it's funny that you say that. They start taking reservations October 1st, and I set a reminder on my phone to make that reservation on October 1st, and I forgot. And I didn't see the reminder. So October 5th, like, oh geez, I need to call Sugarloaf. And I got the last like full hookup spot available 5 days after they started taking reservations. So
Huh.
October, maybe I shouldn't have told everybody that.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked that question.
But I have a
So
spot, a full hookups October for, yeah, for 2 weeks. Yeah.
that's nice. So what if on race day at
Hmm.
Sugarloaf, are you
Hmm.
going would you recommend for other people that are staying there, are you going to ride to the start for a little warm up or are you going to drive to the start?
I've been thinking about that, and I'm not positive. I probably will ride to start. My wife is going to be my crew, and she'll want to go be at the start finish for me, or the start line, of course. So we'll probably drive up. I just got to figure out how to navigate that because there's going to be probably some road closures and such going into town. Um, but I think at that hour in the morning, it's so cold. Um, I'll probably drive up there. I'm thinking I'll ride back though. It's all
Right.
downhill.
All downhill.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend for like it's 37 to 39, 41 degrees. What do you recommend for for the people who've never been in at 10,000 feet when they start a race at 6:30 in the morning downhill for
Cold.
20 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you recommend doing?
Well, I suck it up. Um, it's cold, no doubt, and your hands will be frozen too. But I wear a vest, arm warmers, knee warmers, and fingered gloves. Not heavy fingered gloves, just lightweight fingered gloves. And I'm cold, there's no doubt about it. But by the time you're about a couple minutes climbing up Kevins, you start warming up pretty fast. So, but that's what I do. I usually wear a base layer, like a base layer of tank top, my jersey and arm warmers, and then the vest. And it does a fair job of not making me into a total icicle, but I just suck it up because I know it's going to be for 15, 20 minutes, and then coming down turquoise can be a bit chilly too, but it only lasts, that descent probably takes about 5 or 6 minutes. And then you start climbing
Much
up
shorter.
and you start getting warm all over again. And after the time you get to the top of Sugarloaf, staying warm is not a problem anymore, unless it rains.
Unless it rains. Yeah, see, I'm in a whole different camp from you on the start. I need a little bit more. I hate being cold. I just hate it. So I wear a little bit more, and
Mhm.
then I'll ditch a lot of stuff at the bottom of St. Keepin and just toss it in the trail. And the reason I do that is because I clean the course up Sunday.
Oh,
So
okay.
I will go and I will pick up all the articles of clothing.
Hmm.
And this is for the racers. If you're gonna layer up and you need to discard some stuff, if you do it at the bottom of St. Keepin before you start the climb, key sentence, before you start the climb, because you do
Hmm.
not want to be managing clothes while you're starting to downshift and get into your climb. Too many
Right.
people, too much going on. When you turn left at,
Hmm.
at the at the fork in the road for Keevan, that's the
Hmm.
time to start ditching clothes. And it's
Right.
not literally because I will be there tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, picking that stuff up. And
Hmm.
if it looks anything that's not destroyed, I'll put on the Facebook page and we'll get back to the owners if they can identify it and that sort of thing. But
Okay.
I just I have to layer up too
And
much.
I get, because it is cold. Now my wife, I'll have my puffy coat on at the start line and I'll toss it over to her, a minute before I go. So I'm warm when I start. I'm not freezing on the start line, but,
Right. Yeah, I think that's key.
yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so are you a bottle guy or a hydration pack guy?
Now I'm hydration pack. I'm not crazy about them, but I do like the convenience of keeping my hands on the bars and, I can carry more. Um, I do a medium-sized Camelback or whatever brand, a hydration pack from the start line to Twin Lakes. I only stop twice. Twin Lakes both directions. So I do a medium-sized pack from start line to Twin Lakes. I do a small pack for the Columbine climb, and then I do a 100 liter, not 100 liter, 100, what is it?
100 ounce.
It's equivalent of 5 water bottles, 4.5 water bottles, from Twin Lakes to the finish line. And I put one bottle on my bike that just pure water in it, in case I just want water and not an energy drink.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's what I do. And then if you need something, there's Carter Summit. That's the aid station that's 12 miles from the finish line. So if you really need something, you can top off or get something different there.
Right.
But I used
Right.
to do Bob, um, when I was an 8 hour guy. or close to 8 hours. I did bottles back then because my time on the bike was less.
Well, I mean, it makes a
Yeah,
difference,
it does.
and
Um,
you're never pushing. You
mhm,
know, 8 hour
yeah,
riders probably don't push. You
yeah,
know, so they can, they're just going. When you're
mhm,
pushing, I mean, if you're pushing, if you're pushing anytime, it's a
mhm,
lot easier to drink and maintain your hydration and your calories and your carbs with a
mhm,
hydration pack,
right.
because it's not easy. If you're pushing up Columbine and you've got both hands and you're walking through the baby head rocks and you're in the conga line behind somebody else, managing not hitting that guy and
Mhm,
the guy, the racer coming down that's ahead of you, that's
mhm,
already inbound,
mhm.
it's not easy to take your hand off the bars while you're moving and drink. So a hydration pack, if that's you, if you're that guy, hydration pack's a great idea for that.
I think it works best for that race for me. And I think it works probably best for most racers. Um, but I have three of them and they're all prepped and ready to go. My crew just needs to take the one off me and put a new one on me and away I go. It's all set up and it's super easy. Um,
Right. And
yeah,
what's your are you a gel guy or are you just a liquid hydration guy?
I use gels. Well, not gels, chews, like the gummy texture. Um, and I use some with caffeine and some without. I mix them back and forth because I don't want to take in too much caffeine and maybe have to, stop on the side of the trail to relieve myself because of too much caffeine. Um, I've had races where I haven't had to stop to relieve myself at all, and I have races where I've had to stop one or two times, you know.
Right.
I'm
Me too.
caffeine reason or whatever, but so I kind of watch the caffeine level coming in and out. Um, I is it okay to name brands?
Why not? I don't know.
I do a mixture. I have my own concoction that works really good for me. It doesn't upset my stomach. It's after drinking it for 9, 10 hours. Um, I do half scratch, the hydration one, and I do half goo Roctane. And it's about 200 calories in a water bottle size or 500 milliliters. And of course, I just pour the water bottles into the pack until it's full. So I mix them in the water bottle and I dump them in the pack. So I
Oh,
get
that yeah.
I get the concentration I want by doing that.
Nice. And then so if you say you have 200 calories in a water bottle,
200 calories in a water bottle, and then I'm supplementing with food or chews.
do you eat real food as well?
I have, but it's not usually part of my plan. I just have a hard time getting it down. Your mouth is super dry up there, and anything that's like a bar or like a rice cake or one of those stroop waffles, they're just so hard for me to get down because my mouth is so dry.
Well,
So I
that's a
usually,
common theme, right? It's
yeah,
not easy to eat, but you have to.
right. So
You
I
just
like the chews is what I like, the gummy chews. Because they're moist and they go down pretty easy. You can swallow them whole if you have to. Like a big tablet.
swallow it whole. That must have been when you hit a bump.
Yeah. Well,
I
they're
don't
just a big pill and they're soft and gummy and they go down pretty easy.
I never thought of it. I never heard of it. Never heard anybody say that.
Yeah, I've done that.
You ever have any cramps? You ever have to deal with that?
The only place I've had cramps on that course is the Boulevard or the finishing straight on Sixth. And I
Really?
I just don't know if it's because it's such a long day or it's in my head. I haven't had cramps every race. I've had cramps a couple of races, but I've never had them mid-race or early race or anything like that. No. So
Oh,
just
okay.
the very end. Very end.
You're lucky.
I am lucky.
You're-
But I also use the capsules with the electrolytes. I break those in half and dump them in the water. I don't take the pills because they're just too hard to, you know, take out of your pocket and consume during the race.
Oh, so you add the pills to your bottle, so you're
I,
you're just slow drip kind of a thing when you're drinking your water bottle, you're getting the electrolyte pills as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And
That's great.
it takes a while to figure out your nutrition. There's no doubt about it. I've done so many different ways, And
All
so,
right. Well,
yeah.
this is 19 for you. It's
Mhm.
20. This is 29 for me, and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I am still learning what works better for me. And
Hmm.
I have kind of shifted now. I'm I'm making my own scratch rice cakes, and I put
Okay.
my own ingredients that I like in them, and I wrap them in a way that is better for me.
Hmm.
And I just started doing that last year, but it has, it's better. It's just better for me. There's less litter. You go down easier. The bites are the right size. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are custom tailored to myself, and it takes years and years and years to figure all this out. I mean,
It,
it's a constant learning curve. It is just a constant learning curve.
and I think it goes without saying, it's so important to constantly keep those fluids and those calories down the hatch every 15, 20 minutes. I set timers on my computer and my watch in case I don't hear one or the other to remind. Because if you don't remind yourself, sorry about that, guys. I got a cat too. They're fighting. Um, but if you don't have some kind of reminder, it's real easy to let 30, 45 minutes go by and you don't drink or eat. And then you find yourself in a deficit, and that's bad.
Oh, isn't
That's
that the truth?
yeah.
My analogy is, if you run this, we're talking fuel, your fuels. If you run with your tank full,
Hmm.
because you're eating it every 10-minute, 15-minute increments, and you're taking a bite and you're washing it down, and
Hmm.
then something happens, whatever that thing might be,
Hmm.
and you don't eat for 45 minutes, now you're at half.
Hmm.
But if you are not disciplined on your fueling
Hmm.
and you're always running at half, you're fine if nothing happens. However, when something happens, and it's Leadville, something's probably going to happen.
Will probably happen.
Yep. Now you don't eat for 30, 45 minutes. Now you're
Mhm.
down here and you are running on empty, and
Right.
you are not going to recover from that.
Oh, I
So,
totally agree. I've
yeah,
had situations where the watch goes off and you're like, maybe it's really busy, there's a lot of traffic. And I go, well, I'll drink in a minute or two. And all of a sudden the timer goes off again and it's another 15 minutes have gone by. It's like, oh my gosh, I haven't drank in a half hour or whatever it might be.
right,
It's real important to try to stay on it, not skip a drink interval or a eating interval, whatever it might be. Because
right,
you
right.
going to die really fast.
That you're not crawling out of,
Yeah,
which is the key, right? I mean, that's if you get behind, it's bad news for you. Your day is going to be a lot different than you thought it was going to be.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. If you feel a little bit of a bonk or you're coming on, you've got to start fueling fast and furious at that point. Because if you let it get any worse, you're going to be in big trouble.
right.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other bullet point for newbie racers, for first time buckle chasers?
Pace yourself. Don't go out of the gate too hard. I've had a couple races where I've done that and you pay for it later. Um, it's so easy to get caught up in that start line frenzy where everybody goes as hard as they can go, or they want to be the first one to the dirt or the first one to the bottom of St. Keevan. Let them go. Ride your own race, watch your heart rate. You know what you can do. Well, you think you know what you can do because at 10,000 feet, your numbers are going to be all over the place. They're not what they are at sea level, but just pace yourself. You know what a good pace feels like when you're going too hard. I think
Right. And it
that's
might be a little easier than you initially think
Mhm.
because it's going to be such a long day.
Exactly.
It's
Don't
another
burn out
thing to factor in.
the race.
Right.
So easy.
All right. Well, that was super awesome, Randy. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Love the advice, love the tips, love the story, love the chat. You know, it's going to be good to see you again this year.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thanks
here's
for
something. what is your take on what's your take on the writers meeting?
Oh, I never miss it. I love it. It's a well, for those that have been going for many, many years, it's a great time to reconnect with friends and see people you haven't seen in a year. And then the atmosphere and the energy from all the speakers and Ken and Merrily is you just have to be there. I've never missed one, and nor would I ever skip one for
I'm
sure.
with you. Yeah, I'm
Gotta go.
with you 100% on that.
Yeah.
That for this is dating us, right? But when Rocky came out,
Mhm.
I wanted to run home from the movie theater. That's how pumped I was, right?
Yeah.
So for me, when I go to the writers meetings, even though I've seen every one of them since the day I started, they don't get old for me. They just get me pumped up. They are the most energetic, enthusiastic, underdog story, everything you could possibly imagine just to get you amped up. And the song, the Vomino song is just crazy good. And it's all timing. And I
Yeah.
just absolutely love that. So if for the new racers, I would highly recommend, I don't care how
Mhm.
busy you are, whatever your program is, or make sure you get to that writers meeting and you
Mhm.
get a good seat and you pay attention, and it is it will get you ready. That is for sure.
Yeah, it's probably the best hour at being at Leadville, It really it's great. It's a good time. Yeah.
All right. I agree. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I thought about that a little late. So, but I
No,
thank you very much. Appreciate your time. We will see you in Leadville and we will see you at the finish line.
that sounds great. I look for you before we'll be at Sugarloafing and we'll be at the RV with the two crazy dogs.
But we will find you.
You
We
will
will
find.
find you. All right. Leadville Racers. This is Mike with Get My Buckle YouTube channel. I want to remind you that if anybody's looking for wheels, we've partnered up with Bird Wheels. They've got the rope spokes and the carbon hoops, the lightest wheels on the market. If you are interested in wheels, if you use the code BIRDBUCKLE 2024, you get 10% off on wheels. Carmichael Training Systems is also aligned with us, and they are waiving the athlete registration fee, which I think is $79. They waive that if you use the code GetMyBuckle. So highly recommend a coach. Nothing but good. You're going to learn all kinds of things about training and about yourself. So with that in mind, good luck. Keep training. We'll see you at the finish line.